Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want to become IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS even? We Unacademy, with top educators of India and meticulously designed quality content, we have been waiting for you, waiting to shape you especially so that you realize your dream, goal. Once you enroll yourself in Unacademy, ladies and gentlemen, you will undergo a great learning experience. You know very well about Unacademy. This is India's largest and the best online education platform. What are all the benefits you are likely to get? You can ask me that question once you enroll yourself in Unacademy. Ladies and gentlemen, you got daily live classes. You can chat with your educator, engage in all-round discussions, especially productive discussions, and you can also ask all your genuine doubts and participate in the answer polls. All these things you can do when the session's going on. And you got structured courses here, completely based on UPSC Civil Service Examination pattern as well as the syllabus, so that we ensure you never get deviated from the expected framework, so that you save time and energy. Ladies and gentlemen, it is not knowing the stuff, knowing to deliver the stuff, because delivery matters, you know well. It's not what you deliver, rather, how do you deliver? Yes, for that you've got a mechanism. You're going to evaluate your preparation at various stages by regularly conducting mock tests and quiz programs. See, based on your performance, you will be getting a detailed analysis, a report. That report will tell you where you are strong, where you are weak, and you also come to know, how much time you took in solving a particular question. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that, once you enroll yourself in Unacademy, you got unlimited access to all the live and recorded videos. And you can also learn from anywhere, anytime. And whatever may be your electronic device, whether it is mobile phone, laptop, even desktop, ladies and gentlemen, so you can, avail all these benefits once you enroll yourself in Unacademy. For that, what you have to do, please download Unacademy learning app immediately. Whether it is Android, iOS, ladies and gentlemen, once you download, all the benefits we enlisted, you are likely to access. Who is this interacting with you? This is Success Sampath from Chennai. Got the unique experience, that got exposed to the field of engineering, management, legal education, with 25 years of experience in the field of coaching and shaping the careers of civil service aspirants. With my team, I could witness, 250 plus results as IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS even we are talking about. All my kids are working in different parts of India and some of the candidates working in abroad as well. And you can also parallelly post me a question. What's your vision, sir? Yes, my vision is to provide career solution, especially to be part of the solution, to provide career solution by enabling youths of India to start with, later to embrace the global community. Fortunately, this particular vision of mine is completely in alignment with Unacademy's vision. We are working together to shape you so that you realize your dream. You become officer of your own capacity, ladies and gentlemen. So you can also reach me, that through Telegram channel, even the YouTube channel part, Unacademy. Use my ID as Success Sampath or Sampath Turvengiram. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not only me, as I told that we as a team, working here, part of Unacademy, waiting for you, waiting to shape you. More than 100 plus, that educators of top educators of India to shape you so that you realize your dream. Under UPSC Civil Service Examination, we got more than 15,000 courses, subject-specific module, duration-specific module. So you can choose program according to your convenience and budget as well. And under UPSC Civil Service Examination, we got two major programs called Plus and Iconic program. When we talk about Plus program, it's got all these advantages. Say you got live classes, you got test series, and you got unlimited practice sessions, and you got structured schedule. Ladies and gentlemen, you can be part of either 12 months program or 24 months program up to your convenience. And you can also use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount. And more than this plus program, we strongly recommend you to choose Iconic program, where you will be allotted a personal coach, a mentor, understand your nature, and to suggest your study planner accordingly. Not only that, giving you, the personalized feedback so that, you transform using that feedback. Not only that, training yourself every day in terms of answer writing practices. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. We are talking about, which has got more advantages, this Iconic program, than the Plus program. Here too, you have, 12 months program, 34 months program. So you choose, that accordingly. Please use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount. Technically speaking, ladies and gentlemen, you end up paying mere 80 to 100 rupees if you calculate in terms of per day basis. I think it's not even your consumption towards your evening snacks expenditure, but you ensure your career parallelly. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it is the right time. Let us get into the purpose, very purpose of our interaction. So thanks for your passions. Yes, this is in continuation of the very thinkers discussion. That hope you would have already watched the previous videos, already part of Unacademy YouTube, that it's available there. And so after introducing the grand strategy to score 450 plus, especially in sociology, it is possible because I'm qualified enough to speak about that, because I scored good marks. Even my kids, that working in different parts of India as officer could score well. And apart from that, the very subject which is popular. Why? Because you are in touch with that subject. You are part of the syllabus. Otherwise, the syllabus is in you. The very society you are living, that it is all about that. And you know everything about sociology, frankly speaking. It is, in the name of, the teaching, it's a magic we are doing. I know that after the completion of all the topics, you will come to know, everything. But only thing, in the name of the subject called sociology, part of UPSC mains optional, we ensure you get the nomenclatures. We give shape to your understanding. The very shape, that otherwise we give structure to your understanding. Otherwise, because you know everything. You know about society, you know about, social institution, the marriage, family, kinship, your relatives, your education institutions, economic institutions. How do you acquire the culture from the society? How it is different from civilization? Why all these institutions, that say, otherwise your identity, maybe in terms of caste, race, gender, even ownership over economic resources, you call class. Ladies and gentlemen, so all this identity we call, social stratification, because it is not mere inequality, and it also talks about hierarchy, associated privileges, disprivileges. That's what you witness in your society you are living. Whatever may be the criteria, definitely you are getting discriminated. The discrimination, that should not go, that against you. That's why the Constitution even defining in terms of positive discrimination, protective discrimination, to do all those historical, the corrections of what happened, to undo the past mistakes. You call reservation. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that, so all these institutions and the relationship you call structure, the structure in its functioning, your system is born, that's what you call society. All these things we spoke, all these things you know well. The very change what we are talking about, the part of the society, that change could be cultural or even structural. When I say cultural, it's maybe in terms of, where you would have heard even the basic concepts. We introduce some concepts to you. The Sanskritization, Westernization. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. It is imitation, aping the West, aping the upper caste lifestyle. Or when we talk about, that the very structural change, you talk about change in terms of various institutions that happen in India because of, British administration. That way. We are talking about the change. The change could be cultural, change could be structural. That way we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, put together you call the social change. And all your understandings, that we can group under, that otherwise, you look at each and every event happening in the society in terms of two different perspectives in sociology. Major perspectives, of course, and we are going to discuss one more important perspective that's going to be the future of sociology, also called symbolic interactionism. And the major, the perspectives, if you ask me, the macro perspectives, maybe the symbolic interactionism, what I'm going to interact with you today, introduce you That, that symbolic interactionism may be brought under micro perspective category. The major or macro perspectives, of course, you call structural functionalism, even conflict school of thought. The structural functionalism looks at society as a system, as if it has got structure. The society has got order. Maybe if at all any change, you say from static to dynamic. You're not ready to accept the term called change. Otherwise, you say the society has got a value consensus. People come and agree. That's why order, stability, integration, cohesion. But whereas, that another, the school of thought, of course, you say that the conflict school of thought, the history of either all existing societies full of struggle. So it's that way. The change is permanent according to that particular concept. The change because of radical revolution. The revolution because of, that inherent contradiction in that particular society. Because one house trying to, that exploit the have-nots. Except primitive communism, according to Karl Marx, who said to be the founder of conflict tradition, we spoke everything, the major perspectives. And not only that, out of the major perspectives, that we introduce thinkers also. The very thinkers, that, of course, the Karl Marx, later Max Weber, Emile Durkheim, even Talcott Parsons, R.K. Merton, American structural functionalists we call. We introduce all those, the thinkers. So, and the final thinker part of that mains, paper 1 syllabus, the UPSC mains optional subject sociology, paper 1 syllabus. And the final thinker, of course, George Herbert Mead, belonging to the school of symbolic interactionism, micro perspective. When I say symbolic interactionism, you got other people also like, Herbert Blumer, Irving Goffman, no doubt. Even Charles Hurton Cooley, C.H. Cooley, you call, no doubt. But H Mead, because of his contribution, the self-identity, he plays crucial role. And you got parallelism. We have to bring other father of psychoanalysis, even that Sigmund Freud. And there are other people also, that to criticize, to give you the parallel concepts of this, the self and identity. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So it is in continuation of the thinkers discussion. You know very well, even in the previous, that discussion, we shared this information. When we talk about, thinkers, especially the paper 1, if you're very, that good at thinkers, you're capable of scoring up to 250 marks. I'm talking about those days, but today, out of 250, probably you can touch 200 also. It's possible. Because, the contribution of, the major questions, more questions, from this particular thinkers portion. And even in the other units of syllabus, say the social institutions, you get once again the crucial role played by these thinkers. Under each and every institution, 2 different perspectives, you bring the thinkers, entering into the fray once again. Application of all these theories and concepts in Indian context is otherwise called paper 2. Well. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all these things, we already introduced you. And apart from that, the sociology, it's not only popular, it's also highly scoring. The sociology, it's a study about society. The systematic, scientific, and integrated study we are talking about. Study about social relationship, otherwise you call. The social, when we say it's a broad, it encompassing all marital, familial, kinship, educational, economic, religious, political, social stratification. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we spoke. It has got other advantages, I said. How, you can ask me? Yes. The other advantages, that you can also parallelly score good marks in your general studies paper. Because in sociology, the basic concepts you are getting exposed. That gives you clarity. The letter and spirit. Whatever you speak, whatever you write, that's going to be in the next level. And even to understand the questions in general studies, you need, the support of the vocabulary, even to express yourself. So that will be solved by the sociology, especially in your paper 1, say GS, you got society portion. And you need not prepare for that with this knowledge you can, but please don't reveal your sociological flavor there, because in general studies, you are supposed to be generalist, your delivery should be. Not only that, in general studies paper 4, you've got ethics and case studies. The case studies are nothing but social problems, and they are expecting you to provide solution within the framework. The ethics in a personal relation, social relation, ethics in public administration, even environmental relation, you got formula for that. So all these key concepts are nothing but the concepts of sociology. and which has got overlapping with other social sciences also. I'm not, that refusing that, but the role played by sociology is very crucial there. Out of 130 marks, definitely, that you find very comfortable in delivering there, because this becomes your base. Not only that, other advantages, when I spoke, I said, the very role played by essay, the effective support by, that the sociology in scoring more marks in essay. Out of 250 marks, when we analyze, I'm keep on emphasizing this point, when we analyze all, the last 25 years of question paper, the whole topics can be brought under a domain. One particular domain is always devoted to the society, where please, they don't reveal there also, that your sociological flavor, you are supposed to write, like generalist. But of course, very well, essay talks about structure and content. In the content, the very sociology plays crucial role. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way we are talking about other advantages. Not only that, the very byproduct of, sociology is, that objectivity, the core principle. Objectivity is all about, that see as it is, accept as it is. Don't be prejudiced. Otherwise, that it talks about, that you are not, that add your own color to every situation, every event, every concept. So, you also come to know about, value neutrality. So, objectivity, value neutrality. Otherwise, seeing two sides of the coin. It is not addressing only one side of the coin and they're becoming discriminatory. It is genuine. Only when you address two sides of the coin, you understand the truth behind everything. It's that way. So, the byproduct of sociology you call, objectivity, even the value neutrality. That is why the very sociological report, they have become, that very precise, accurate. All social reformers, legislators, planners, non-governmental organization, international organization, waiting for this report. Why? Valued high. Why? It's because of accuracy, preciseness. Because you made scientific study, applying the methods of natural sciences, you made study over society, where society is your laboratory. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So, that these are all the basics about, that sociology and its advantages. That is why it is very popular. So, in every, that session I'm emphasizing, because every session we encounter some, that new aspirants. So, hope, that it's benefiting you, guide you, especially what is the very purpose for which we are on today. It's that way. So, the very introduction, of course, that then the sociology and UPSC Civil Service Examination, the syllabus we are linking, especially the thinkers portion, and locating, H Mead out of the thinkers syllabus, and also, that where George Herbert Mead, we are going to talk about, his biography and, the contributions, because, the historical roots you should understand. Then only you will appreciate the ideas. Each and every idea has got its own historical roots. If you don't understand that, if you don't connect the dots, probably we may not understand the clear picture. Even it's the right time to recall the Steve Jobs statement. If you want to look into the future, please look back. Try to connect all the dots in the back. You will get the clear-cut framework so that you can travel the future comfortably, confidently. Ladies and gentlemen, so to appreciate the ideas or contributions of H Mead, definitely you need, that you need to understand the historical roots, the background of, that George Herbert Mead, the biography where we are bringing in. Not only that, the very contribution we are talking about, self and identity. You come to know who you are. My dad used to scold my elder brother when he was, that mischievous, not sincere enough in studies. Used to scold him. You go and face the society. Try to earn 1 rupee. You will understand who you are, what society is. Because there you come to know, hitherto you are under the comfort at the home. The moment you go to the society, face the society, once you, that work somewhere, get the money you get, your getter, someone giving you, he becomes owner. The relationship, it's not free from exploitation. It may not go as you expected. It's not hobnobbing, it's not friendly also. I'm not talking about negative picture, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way. There you develop who you are, how society is. Hitherto you spoke only in favor of, that your instinctive I. Now there comes me. This self-formation. Oh, we have to behave in this situation. So you come to know who you are on the basis of your interaction with the society. In social interaction, the self emerges. You come to know who you are on the basis of social interaction with the rest of the society. That identity about you that you realize, not by yourself, not but in interaction, that I becomes me. Even in socialization, the very the physical entity, of course, the animal society, as animal we become human society, because the culture SIM card enters in us. The I becomes me. That constraints, that exercises constraint. Don't speak this way, appreciate this, don't talk that way, don't do this. All don'ts and do's, in terms of social values, social norms, custom, tradition, your belief, faith pattern. The blueprint, once it enters in you, ultimately that you become a personality that gives you a character, the inculcation of the value system, ladies and gentlemen. So that the self emerges only in social interaction. So this is what the main idea behind this. It's a microscopic idea. It can never be compared with the macro level perspectives of so structural functionalism. It's totally different scenario, and that's also became a criticism at the end. So whatever you suggest, its microscopic version may not be applicable to the macro version. That's the criticism. This George Herbert Mead attracting. That criticism, we are going to talk about that, and it's quite complicated, that it's not clear like that. That's what at the end of the day the criticism about every social scientist, right? That thing we don't understand, we call God, otherwise we call people genius. George Herbert Mead, genius, we are talking. So if you don't understand, you are not genius. You are not genius. That's what my statement, that of course, ladies and gentlemen, you are genius. Definitely you will understand it is that way. So additional information, some more information, that miscellaneous information I would like to add up at the end also after criticism to reinforce the concept once again. And beyond that, I would like to also, that quote from, this is fantastic, of course, the Ritzer Douglas Goodman, the very book, that the fantastic book. It's not mandatory, but taking you to the core of the understanding. I'm going to, that take read the few points from there so that you get ideas, ladies and gentlemen, to complete your understanding, especially about symbolic interactionism, especially about George Herbert Mead, especially his contribution, self and identity. That you normally get that small questions, 10 marks questions. Why not in UPSC? That it's beyond all prediction. So be prepared to face even a big question the forthcoming year, ladies and gentlemen. And what are all the resources to be consulted, of course, that we'll be discussing at the end. Ladies and gentlemen, it is right time. This is what our content of interaction today, ladies and gentlemen. So apart from the introduction, we take you to the relevance, then we will be straight away entering into that introducing you to the world of symbolic interactionism, especially from the views of George Herbert Mead. Ladies and gentlemen, it's right time. Let me take you to the next level. Of course, we spoke enough about sociology, that so that that I even newcomers that watching first time that this particular video to benefit, to ensure the relevance. I think not only that, this is what the thinkers portion, part of paper 1 of UPSC, that mains optional sociology syllabus got the major contribution to the tune of 200 marks out of 250. So hitherto we have discussed in previous videos all these thinkers. Please watch all these videos to ensure the relevance, ladies and gentlemen. But today it's going to be about the final thinker part of the the paper 1 syllabus, George Herbert Mead, and whose contribution, self and society. Here comes our relevance. The today's topic's discussion, and has got located in the syllabus this way, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way. And not only that, I want to ensure that context to be more precise. It's not simply linking with mere syllabus. How the questions are asked. I don't, okay, sir, self and identity, how the questions are asked. The previous years, so many questions asked. Just for sample, I've taken 2 questions. Don't want to complicate, because understanding the concepts, that very, very important here. Hope it's that way. So this is, that the previous year questions I'm going to read. The self and society are twin born. Where not only George Herbert Mead, even Charles H. Cooley accepting this view, and examined the statement of Mead, George Herbert Mead. So self and society. Because I think, here comes, a parallel thought for me. When we were discussing Emile Durkheim, and he said, sociology is nothing but study about social facts. And who also talked about, the primitive form of religion found in Australia, aborigines, especially he discussed in terms of elementary forms of religious life, you might be aware. So according to Emile Durkheim, I've got, purpose to link Emile Durkheim here. Religion is nothing but society divinized. Suicide is social, he said. It's not individual, more than individual, social. He gave types also. And in society, there is a solidarity, social order, mechanical solidarity, organic solidarity, well, according to Emile Durkheim. He also said religion is nothing but in the name of worshipping God, you worship society. Society transfigured by faith. That is what, according to Emile Durkheim, the very religion. Otherwise, according to him, religion is nothing but collective representation. We collectively represent as if, that a particular plant or animal has got spirit in that. Then we start venerating. We attribute power. Sacred, profane, we all those things we discuss part of Emile Durkheim. It is that way. In the name of, that self, what do you see? Society enters you. The name of society also, that self is getting shaped. So this is what, that, it's inseparable, twin concepts. Otherwise, if at all you say this is what me, the self, is a byproduct of your social interaction, byproduct of your society, byproduct of your socialization, byproduct of your cultural exposure. So they are inseparable. What is in the society is in you. That exercises some sort of constraints, the culture, the blueprint, value system. You start, social norms, social values, custom, tradition, even the very social norms documented, formalized in terms of law, the formal mechanism. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So self and society are twin bond, inseparable. That's what, that George Herbert Mead, they're talking about that, and discuss the role of symbolic interactionism. That it is out of social interaction, your self emerges, where you get the help of, gestures and symbols, especially languages, especially the oral communication, that, taking you to the next level of, that interaction and enriching your understanding about society. So that ultimately helps you to the formation of the very self. Otherwise, you are animal. You are just animal. How we became social animal, as said by Aristotle, because of the incorporation of the culture. The SIM card culture enters in us, we became, social animal. We know how all our social needs, how to fulfill. We got a modality, we got a process, we got a code of conduct. It is not like animal, whenever we get urge, we try to fulfill, we are not bothered about, we pay scant attention to the culture. No. We know how to fulfill the needs because we got institutions, we got marriage, we got a family, we got relatives, of course, kinship, and other institutions also, that crucially playing roles, economic institution, social stratification, political institution, all religious institutions. We got a modality, code of conduct, process. So there your self is getting formed. Ladies and gentlemen, so the role of symbolic interactionism, of course, that though it is micro perspective, that of course it's not only H Mead, we also spoke about Charles H. Cooley, Herbert Blumer, and also Irving Goffman, dermatological view we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. I think, you had previous questions, that we got relevance of this particular topic, that today, George Herbert Mead, that social interactionism perspective, self and identity. So that gives me, that ultimately, that opportunity to discuss about this particular topic, though it is part of the syllabus. You understand now. Now, this is right time for us to take you to the level of, biography, to understand the social background, especially of this George Herbert Mead, so that you understand his contributions and its impact on sociology, in enriching the subject matter of sociology. Of course, the symbolic interactionism is going to be the future of sociology. That is what, the Ritzer Douglas Goodman, they also conclude with that particular article. It's that way, ladies and gentlemen. I think it is right time. It is George Herbert Mead we are talking about, is American philosopher. And because, there we are going to talk about, that ontological, metaphysical approach, that's why American philosopher, very well, you try to see both sides of a coin. Of course, optimist, pessimist, philosopher sees both. It is that way. Sociologist, not only that, because of his contribution, self-identity that arises in social interaction. Because it's almost treating individual as a byproduct of society. When structural functionalism looks at society, society is more than individual. Ladies and gentlemen, whereas here, even Karl Marx looking at society is more than individual. But whereas Max Weber spoke in favor of individual. The same way, maybe that from Weberian world, that even from Hegelian world, the ideas playing crucial role in shaping an individual. Of course, here also we take, speak on behalf of individual, the individual self formation, not I, the instinctive behavior that becomes me, the social self, from individual self to social self. How? Because of social interaction. So enriching the subject matter of sociology. That's why sociologists, of course, that the overlapping portion, social psychology especially, how individuals impact on society, how society, the impacting individual. Otherwise, individuals are how impacted by the society. Social psychology. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So you also call him as psychologist. Primarily affiliated, that to the University of Chicago, and where he was one of, that several distinguished, the pragmatics, that they want to see only practices more than theories. It is that way. The pragmatism, of course, the emergence of self in social interaction has got its root here, and he is regarded as one of the founders of social psychology. The overlapping between sociology and psychology, you might be aware, that sociology and psychology portion, social psychology, ladies and gentlemen. It's that way, Venn diagram. Let's get the help. It's that way, ladies and gentlemen. Not only that, this American philosopher, his exposure, the Massachusetts, especially, that you talk about Oberlin College, his exposure to the career railroad surveyor and exposure to Harvard University, this and all you can ask me. You're not going to write here in the examination, but so that you get some ideas in what way this and all the things influence his contribution, and Josiah Royce, that we are talking about, and a major influence upon his thought, especially these people, and the William James, whose children he tutored. See, just imagine. So the teacher is born there. Germany to study. He went to Germany to study with psychologists, especially Wilhelm Wundt, very famous psychologist, from whom he learned the concept of gesture. That how gesture. That ultimately, and not only that, from there you arrive at symbols. Of course, it becomes oral symbol in terms of the communication. Very well. The gestures playing crucial role in communication. You might be aware. The body language you call it is that way. So gesture, even you call grimace. So a concept central to his later work. Of course, that a post at the University of Michigan. That. So these are all his the career exposure. Simply let us understand this. And in 1894, George Herbert Mead moved. I repeat once again, this is all not quite relevant to that your examination pattern. There comes my role to connect with this thing so that you understand the concepts better. So he moved along with John Dewey, of course we are talking about, and to the University of Chicago, where he taught until his death. Ladies and gentlemen, that his life as professor, of course teacher we are talking about. So he is that no detached philosopher, ladies and gentlemen. That's why the philosophy, his preoccupation with the philosophy, it is that way. He was active in Chicago's that social and political affairs I'm talking about, and among his many activities include his work, the City Club of so his outreach, the society we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way. Right, and of course that and he left this world in 1931 because of his health failure, heart failure especially, ladies and gentlemen. So the major contributions we are talking about, that in 1932, the philosophy of the present. Of course, this is what our syllabus now, mind, self, society, ladies and gentlemen. Self and identity we call the syllabus. Of course, it's old wine in a new bottle we are calling it. The previous old syllabus used to have this title, mind, self, society. It's that way, ladies and gentlemen. And movement of thought in the 19th century and the philosophy of act. I'm not going to elaborate all these things, just come to know. And selected writings, the individual and social self, and unpublished essays, and essays in social psychology. These are all the major contributions, just for your information. We need not spend much time over this, and you understand something about him. And it is right time for us, that to enter into the very purpose, of course, part of your syllabus, self and identity. Of course, the points will be repetitive because then only it gets reinforced in your mind. That's the very purpose. And don't get irritated. And this repetition will take you to the core of the concept. That's what the very idea. Oh, please cooperate with us. It is that way. So the self and identity. George Herbert Mead is a major American philosopher by virtue of being, along with John Dewey, just now we have seen, that Charles Peirce, William James, they're all, that, and also one of the founders of the pragmatism school of thought. that want to see everything in its performance or practice. Med is also an important figure in 20th century social philosophy. Ladies and gentlemen, the philosophical, of course, that's what I said, metaphysical, ontological, the branch of, that the very metaphysics. Metaphysics, deals with, that the ideas of existence. It is that way. The reality, you try to find everything. His theory of how mind and self emerge from the social process of communication by signs. Signs, this is not science, SIG, symbols, that founded the very symbolic interactionism school of sociology and social psychology. So the, how the mind, or, who am I? That's what the question on the part of, that Swami Vivekananda, who am I? Of course, that Swami Ramakrishna Paramahamsa showed him, that who he is through Sparishad Diksha, well, it is that way. So the question sometimes, that comes to us, who am I? What is the very purpose for which I am here? What's my direction? What is the very purpose for which I came from, that so-called Brahman? What is the purpose of this Atman? Of course, you need enlightenment. Of course, moksha, nirvana, kaivalya, everything you call. It is that way. So the very purpose, that the self, who am I? The basic fundamental question in you, who am I? It is that way. So the mind and self emerge from the social process of communication we are talking about. Of course, the signs, by signs or symbols, especially as I told you right in the beginning, gestures. So that is the foundation for symbolic interactionism school of sociology, even the social psychology, very well. How he has done, we are going to learn. He also made significant contributions to the philosophies of nature, science, and history, to philosophical anthropology, and to the process philosophy. These are all his outreach we are talking about, apart from art domain. And the very John Dewey and Alfred North Whitehead, we are talking about other social scientists, that consider Mead, that how they viewed, very George Herbert Mead as a thinker of the first rank. It is that way. So that is the reason, we brought him under the founding fathers of, sociology. It is that way, because even the very symbolic interactionism is going to be the future of sociology. Because, that even that is what the thing, the people are tired of collectivism. There's a trend you witness, the people running after their own individual. For me, what way it is going to affect me, that notion came in. Of course, the very Western ideology, individualism, privacy, it's also penetrating through capitalism, and even to the Eastern Oriental countries, that everybody loving privacy here too. Is that way, that maybe it is Westernization you call, or it is a change that you witness today. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, so the symbolic interactionism, of course, it is the way, it plays crucial role. His classic example, otherwise trying to analyze everything in micro perspectives than the major perspectives, like, a structural functionalism, even conflict school of thought, ladies and gentlemen. And he is classical example of social theorist whose work doesn't fit easily within conventional discipline, the disciplinary boundaries. That so it has got its own, the uniqueness, and that is the very, the purpose highlighting here, ladies and gentlemen. And we are yet to enter into what is self, ladies and gentlemen. So rooted intellectually, do you understand his historical roots? Very intellectual background, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse. Sorry. Rooted intellectually, you have seen, that his exposure to various universities and social scientists of different spectrum, and his and their opinion about George Herbert Mead, treating him as a first rank, and the order of, first rank, social scientist, you might be aware. So the rooted intellectually in Hegelian dialectics, very well about Hegel. It is Hegel who said ideas are responsible for the change in the world. Actually, in the Karl Marx in the beginning, that was a follower of this Hegelian school of thought, you might be aware. And later he replaced that ideas by material resources. In place of ideas, Karl Marx said material resources responsible for change. This Hegel is well known for, that the very tenet, for every thesis you got antithesis. Over the period there will be the change because of ideas. But for every thesis, antithesis, one idea is opposed by another idea. I'm not talking about Gandhiji's statement, The great souls are always opposed by the mediocre minds. Maybe you consider that antithesis that way. Huh? The greatest spirit is always opposed by mediocre minds. Huh? You got strong opposition. When you got strong idea, naturally you will face. When there is great, even my sister used to mention, when there is a great opposition, you're growing. You become a big person. Like, that is, I trace with that. So Hegelian dialectics, it is that way. What is that? Dialectism in the sense, one opposing another, study of contradiction. So Hegelian dialectics is all about one idea is opposed by another idea. Over the period, it is synthesis. That is also opposite to that antithesis. So ideas contradicting, it's always study of contradiction is called dialectics. Same way Karl Marx said, dialectic materialism, one class opposing another. When you are trying to have ownership over the resources, there comes conflict. It is that way. So it has got its own root, that the rooted intellectually in Hegelian dialectics, ideological tradition, and the process philosophy, the very George Herbert Mead, like the John Dewey, developed more materialistic process of philosophy, and that was based upon human action and specifically communicative action. Ladies and gentlemen, so the ideas, of course, that his historical roots in terms of idealist tradition of the Hegel dialecticism, but that of course the parallelism with John Dewey we are talking about, more materialistic, the process of philosophy that's based upon human action, especially the communicative action. There comes the role of gesture, symbol, the tools of communication, of course, where we are going to talk about role taking by the kid, and also play stage, game stage, the how the self of the kid is formed, and there you talk about generalized others, significant others. Ladies and gentlemen, because that we are talking about. So the human activity in practical sense is a criterion of truth, and through human activity the meaning is made. Action gives meaning more than words. Action, that's why we say that action speaks louder than words. It's, all words should be matched by actions, otherwise the words becoming meaningless. It becomes simply eloquence, rhetoric. What is the use of words? There are people say, I will do that thing, doing nothing. The bad promises, political manifestos you encounter. Hope that you got your own tool, elections. It's that way. So it's that way, ladies and gentlemen. Whoever may be, walk the talk. So there comes, human activity in pragmatic sense. We are talking about the criterion of, and through human activity, it's when you meet that word, when you are committed, letter and spirit, the meaning is made. You complete sense in all aspects. It is that way. So not only that, the joint activity, including communicative, otherwise action, social action. It's not. See, the basic unit of this symbolic interactionism is act. The basic unit of society is family. Family is the basic unit of society. But Talcott Parsons says, structural functionalism school of thought, the basic unit of social system, according to him, the role. It's that. So according to symbolic interactionism perspective, the micro perspective, the basic unit is called act. But it's not individual act, social act, because the self emerges out of social interaction. Even individual self formation, the individual self becoming social self. I becomes me. How that we are talking about when you say I, but that I, that over the days, that the exposure to the culture of the society through various agents of socialization, it becomes me. This I is animalistic behavior. The I is getting tamed because of the societal culture. That becomes me. What to do, what not to do, all your needs, how they should be fulfilled. You are constrained by societal values and norms. This I becomes me. There comes individual self. This is social self. The self formation, because of it's in collective action, the joint activity. It is social action, especially. Even there comes Max Weber. The action influenced by society. There comes your self formation because of social action. The action performs in societal situation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So the joint activity, including the communicative, that you achieve through the gestures, the role of symbols, even the oral communication, that makes that the very purpose effectively, as we do now. Without this language, without this oral communication, it may not be possible for me to communicate my ideas, to transform you, to inspire you, to enrich your understanding about the very sociology, the thinkers even. Yes, so it is joint activity. We together perform this action. It is that way. So including communicative activity, that is a means through which our sense of self is constituted. That is a means we are talking about. That all communicative activity. That so the joint activity, including the communicative activity, is a means through which our sense of self. So society becomes instrumental. Social situations becoming instrumental. The joint activity, social action becoming instrumental, where effective role played by gestures, symbols becoming instrumentals. So these means, that through which our sense of end, what is the end? Formation of self. The very inculcation of self. You call character, you call personality, whatever it may be. This is what me. Social self, it's because of that outcome we are talking about. So the Mead, the social psychologists argued anti-positivistic view. Positivistic view, very well. Applying the methods of natural sciences for making study about society. But it is anti-positive. It's not becoming, that the handmaid of the society. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way, opposite to that particular view you are talking about, that the individual is product of the society. Got the point now? So individual is product of the society. Societal formation, the role of society in influencing an individual. More specifically, when you say society, you emphasize social interaction. Action between the two, interaction, not interaction. When you know something about you based on your interaction, it is I. But interaction, action between the two, the societal social interaction, even your thinking, your thought process is a byproduct of the self formation. Sometimes you speak alone. No? You have to. No, this is not me. I'm going to prove this world. I'm going to make difference in the lives of so many people in the world. When you speak in that way, your thought, your thinking, of course, that how you are self formed, because that understood its own purpose. You got your direction. This is outcome of the society, outcome of the social interaction. Probably you got inspired by the great leaders of the world who sacrificed. Maybe Mahatma Gandhi, that Martin Luther King, Swami Vivekananda, people like, maybe Mother Teresa. Maybe people inspired you, maybe Dr. Kalam. People inspired you in so many ways that you also talk that way, that thought, thinking, the self-formation is outcome of the social interaction. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. I think it is right time. Let me take you to the next slide. It is right time. Yes, the self arises when the individual becomes object to themselves. Of course, here self, you treat, that you treat as a subject, you also treat yourself as object. Self arises when individual becomes object. Because when you treat yourself as a subject, it is I, it's no more me. But whereas when you treat yourself as object, it is otherwise called me. Self arises when individual. You treat as if yourself as an object. Otherwise, you just, you are sitting in front of me with laptop or your mobile phone, you just assume that someone is watching you from the corner of your room. Where you become object. You just, how you are sitting, how you're, that listening to my, that how you're interacting with me through virtual class now. You become object. This particular notion, you treat yourself as an object, is the point of difference between human society on the one hand, animal society on the, even the Stephen Covey, the 7 steps of highly effective people, he talks about this particular point. This is the unique feature. We treat as if we are object. The self-formation, it's because of that. You come to know. It's that way. So George Herbert Mead argued that we are objects first to other people, and second, that we become objects to ourselves. So it happens in 2 ways, that we are object to others first, then we become object to ourselves second. Ladies and gentlemen, so it is that way. When you treat yourself, that the subject, it is I, it's not me. That is individual self. But when you treat yourself as an object, that may happen at 2 levels. You treat, that in front of, the rest of the society, and even in front of yourself. You become object to yourself. It is that way. By taking how, this is what we are talking about, the process of role taking. Role taking. You take the roles of others. You treat yourself as if you are object. You put yourself in somebody else's position. You understand empathy, sympathy. Even here, we have to talk about sympathetic introspection of Max Weber. The Verstehen, that approach, where he also talks about that. Because, if you don't put yourself in somebody else's position, you may not. But yeah, of course, Max Weber says you have to establish liaison with the actor to understand the true meaning. That's totally different scenario. When you put yourself in somebody else's position, the emotion you capture, empathy, sympathy involved. It is that way. So the self-formation, you put yourself in, taking the role of the others, role taking, it is that way. The self-formation, that, so you treat yourself as an object to rest of the society, and also you become object to yourself. It is that way, the self-formation, 2 levels. Of course, here he's talking about the role taking, the taking the role of the others. You understand empathy, sympathy involved. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So the language, of course, symbol, once again, gesture, that we spoke, then symbol, that symbolic communication. The language enables us, that to talk about ourselves the same way as we talk about other people. That's what, that sometimes you speak all alone. No, this is not me. Come on. The glory of an individual lies not in never falling, but rising every time we fall. This is how we give pat, we encourage, we move to the next level. How it is possible? Because of the oral communication, because of the language. So it's that way, ladies and gentlemen, and thus through language we become, other to ourselves. You understand the second point? That you become object to yourself. We become, where the role played by the language, the symbol, crucial role, as we have spoke, the society and its symbols acting as means so as to serve the purpose in, what is that? Self-formation. It's that way. I think, you get into the point, core point, then and there. In joint activity, that George Herbert Mead, the joint activity, social action, otherwise. Simply put it, George Herbert Mead, otherwise called social acts, not individual acts. Humans learn to see themselves from the standpoint of, their co-actors, how people view us. Here we have to draw parallelism, that you would have already, the basic concept we spoke about, that Charles H. Cooley, Charles Hurton Cooley. He also, that belongs to, the world of, that social functionalism. This Charles Hurton Cooley, who gave the concept called, looking glass self theory. You go and stand in front of the mirror. What do you see? You see yourself. Because it is image. This is what the image that you come to know when you interact with the society. That you come to know about yourself, but otherwise your self-formation based on the feedback you receive from the rest of the society. So that comes 3 statements. I'm not what I think I'm. I'm not what I think. That I'm, because what I think may be wrong. I'm not what you think I am, because you may be wrong. You're ready to blame immediately. You're always wrong. the blaming game never changes. It's that way. So I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. Finally, what you're coming to say is that maybe you are. I'm what I think on the basis of what you think. Ladies and gentlemen, in my interaction with you, I come to know who I am. If I'm not effectively communicating myself to you, that's a bad. If I effectively communicate, the feedback you give, your appreciation I get, that gives me, that adds another feather on my cap. I give, a pat on myself and come on, Sampath, go ahead. So it is that way. On the basis of the feedback we receive from the rest of the society, that we alter ourselves. Hitherto we have got our own notion about ourselves. This is what me, that's getting modified, altered. On the basis of the, the feedback we receive from the rest of the society. That happens only in social interaction. That happens only when you try to interact with the rest of the society. This is what Charles Hurton Cooley said, looking glass self. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So the joint activity, the social activity, Mead calls, the humans learn to see themselves from the standpoint of their co-actors. It's through, that realizing the one's role in relation to that of, that in relation to others, that selfhood arises. Of course, self-formation arises. You come to know, it's not you form about yourself. The self-formation is not about, that yourself alone. That's partial. That's not complete. Only when you interact with the rest of the society, the self-formation, that is complete in all sense. It occurs in social situations, in communal action, not negative sense. Collective action. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So we are talking about it is that way. So the very self-formation happens in joint activity or social act. Of course, for symbolic interactionism school, you know that the very basic role of society, the basic unit of society is act, act. But Karl Marx, in his the contribution, once said, the production is the first historical act. Production, because only when you enter into production, there arises relationship, worker, owner, the classes. So production is the first historical act according to Karl Marx. But here, symbolic interactionism school says act is the basic unit of society. Yes. So this act is not mere individual act, social act. So of course, that occurs in social situation. That results in the self-formation. That social action or symbols or gestures, even language becoming, that ultimately instruments so that you realize your purpose, the end. That's called, of course, self-formation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is right time you come to know. Right. George Herbert Mead, that the grounded human perception in an action nexus. Because, action always happening in constellation. That never happens in discrete sense. Even what we are talking, so the knowledge dissemination, the information sharing. My duty is to inspire you. That's not, simple, that I'm not simply talking in front of you. That has got other, associated actions. My preparation, and based on that preparation, my opinion, my addition, deletion, my enrichment, and of course, PPT making we are talking about. And it's not simply you listen in front of me, that you start thinking. And you prepare and you take notes. That changes, that transforms your understanding hitherto what you have, that your notion about self. So action never happens in discrete, it occurs in constellation. Constellation, it has got meaning. The action nexus meaning the connection we are talking about. So we perceive the world in terms of the means of living. Of course, the means of living, social action, the social situation, the gesture, the symbol. Ladies and gentlemen, so this is how we perceive the world, right? We come to know it is that way. To perceive food is to perceive eating. Food means eating. House means, providing shelter. It is that way. You understand, na? Action nexus. So you see, when you see the food, of course, that the saliva in your tongue, of course, eating. When you see the home, of course, it's not more than a house. Of course, you talk about, home, right? The shelter, of course, that gives you protection from the scorching sun and, the rain and the winter. Of course, that gives you a sense of protection. It is that way you pursue. But very food or house, what you're talking about, symbols to communicate the very action of eating or giving you protection, the shelter. Roti, kapada, makan, you call. Okay. It is a German. It's that way, we are talking about. It is that way. See, otherwise you just forget this. The moment I say, there is a tiger, there is a snake, what will happen? So the very, you talk about ultimately, your fear comes ultimately. You jump here and there. Why? Because immediately a second you recall, because that if snake bites you, ultimately the venom, ultimately you get killed. You recall that picture, you are afraid of that. So it's snake means venom. Snake means that you margaya, you are no more. That thing, the dangerous scene comes to your mind. So it is that way we perceive action, right, ladies and gentlemen. So, but for that snake or food or even the very house we talk about, they become symbols. But and behind that you think about action. Action happens in nexus, connectivity. It's not discrete. It happens in constellations. We're talking about that. But we use all these things as means of living. But the end is different. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So this is to say the perception in terms of action. The Mead's theory of perception, similar to that of that J.J. Gibson we are talking about. These are all the parallelism ideas we are talking about. However, for Mead, unlike John Dewey, J.J. Gibson, the key is not simply the human action, but it's not that individual human action, rather social action. Action happens in collectivity. Collectivism is the core. Even in Tamil movies, I think Sami, that if one man commits, that kills someone, it's called murder. The whole village is involved, it's called social sanction. It's called collective opinion. You can't punish the whole village. That guy says in Tamil, probably I will translate, ஒருத்தவ செஞ்சா கொடலே, ஊரே சேர்ந்து செஞ்சா கலவரம்லே. The Tirunelveli, of course, the local lingua franca. So one man commits, the crime, the killing a person, it's called murder. When the whole village is involved in that, it becomes, that collective opinion, social sanction. You can't punish the whole village. It is that way. So action done in collectivism, it's called collective effort. Collective movement, you call it, whatever it may be. So, that the emphasis by George Herbert Mead, not on individual human action, rather, action happens at social situation. Of course, there emerges yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. Otherwise, social action, social situation, society, it is that way. In humans, the manipulatory phase of act is socially, the communicated, mediated. That is to say, in acting towards the objects, humans simultaneously take the perspectives of others towards the object. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. That it is otherwise called role taking. When kids playing, the roles of police, a thief, how they'll be taking the role of somebody else. It is manipulatory phase of that. You call it is that way. So you take the perspective of others. So in the opinion of the kid, how the police will be. The parents would have said something. It gathers information. It behaves accordingly. So using lathi or something, that like, touching the mustache like this. And there are, women top cops too. And you have, ladies and gentlemen, sorry here. It's not male chauvinistic opinion. So it is that way, ladies and gentlemen. So it is that way we are talking about. This is what, George Herbert Mead means by the social act, as opposed to the simply the act. That's what, that John Dewey's concept, the very act, maybe individual act. But whereas George Herbert Mead, his emphasis on social act, social action, it's to some extent getting repeated to reinforce you. Then only you will understand, the clear cut. Ladies and gentlemen, it has got its own purpose. I think it parallelly happens like revision. So non-human animals also, that manipulative animals, that it's not only restricted to human beings, even animals to some extent, that understand the justice. But but that is a non-social manipulation. It's not for congregation. It's not for going together. That may be for the survival instinct, not for the gatherness, the socialness, not for gregariousness. But there comes a limited perception. It's a where are you? I am here. There is communication. It may be limited to some extent, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way. So it's not 100% in spite of that. But that non-human animals also manipulate the objects, of course, the symbols, but that is that non-social manipulation. But you can't say that's for self-formation like that. First of all, as I told you, that is a basic trait. You treat yourself as an object. That is a unique characteristic feature of the human society, nothing to do with animal society. So you understand better. Okay, they do not take where that these animals do not take the perspective of other organisms. You understand, I believe. Yes. Yes, humans on the other hand take the perspectives of others towards the objects, and this is what enables complex human activity and subtle social coordination. Ladies and gentlemen, the highest of all species order, the human being, you might be aware, you call sixth sense, and we are towards seventh sense also. And there are guys with 100 sense, and you talk about special people, child prodigy also. Got the idea, na? So why, how it is possible? Because you are capable of treating yourself as an object, and that uniqueness, that of course that helps you for all complex the human actions, that otherwise even the subtle social coordination we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. Right time, of course, that let me take you to the next level. Of course, the social act, that of economic exchange. For example, both buyer and seller must take each other's perspective towards the object being exchanged. Ladies and gentlemen, then only the economics, that exchange is complete. Economic cycle is complete. It is not buyer thinking once, one particular aspect, that seller thinking another aspect. When they don't meet each other, so the transaction may not happening. It's that way, ladies and gentlemen. The seller must recognize the value of the buyer. Customer is the king. Customer is the king. If you don't, respect the customer, it's gone. And maybe today transaction, but think about the future transaction. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that. So don't think about competitors, think about customers. Keep the customer in mind and change your business model accordingly. That works. If you think about competitor, won't they find money? The competitors no more because of his bad policies. Or otherwise, there are people unable to handle success. They don't know how to handle the success sometimes. These are all the things we come across in our day-to-day life, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope you understand, there's a lot of suicides happening in different parts of the world, whatever may be the sphere of life. Ladies and gentlemen, seller must recognize the value of buyer, while buyer must recognize the desirability of the money for the seller. Ladies and gentlemen, in how much, the seller expects, the cost price, selling price, everything. Only with this mutual perspective, taking, that the minimum profit, if the very buyer may not compromise. You have to understand, otherwise it won't work. Understand, that. So it's not sticking to the same points, coming down from their respective position, very well. Only with this mutual perspective taking, mutual perspective taking, you try to understand the perspective of others, where you treat yourself as object. It's not only treating yourself object to others, and also treating object, you become object to yourself. It's where you talk about taking the role of the others and taking the perspective of others, so that you understand, so that you complete the economic cycle, complete the economic transaction. Ladies and gentlemen, it is this way we are talking about. Only with this mutual perspective taking can the economic exchange can occur. George Herbert Mead was influenced on this point by Adam Smith, the father of economics, who wrote Wealth of Nations, you might be aware. Just that way, ladies and gentlemen, laissez-faire concept also you might be aware, free from the government interference we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, the George Herbert Mead also, that rooted the self-perception, that we are talking about, the self-perception, perception and meaning deeply and sociologically in common praxis. Praxis means practice we are talking about. Pragmatism, simply put it, it's not theoretical version, it's in practice. How it works practically, how it occurs in social situations, how it occurs in social action. See, I'm simply changing nomenclatures, but it never changes. You see the same self-formation concept in different statements according to George Herbert. Nothing more than that. It's cheating. I'm cheating you. The name of teaching sociology, I'm teaching you. I mean, I'm cheating you actually. See, what a cheating job I'm doing. Because you know everything. As I told you, I'm just giving you shape to your understanding. Spirit remains same. Only nomenclature changes. Life is same. But whether you call fantastic or horrible, it's your personal notion. It's that way. The way with which you look at things, it is that way. Ladies and gentlemen, here the spirit remains same. The nomenclature changes. The interpretation is that way. The spirit remains that same. Of course, George Herbert Mead, also rooted the self-perception and meaning deeply and sociologically in pragmatism, the common praxis in the sense practice. Talk about, found especially in social encounters, social situations, social interactions, in society, in social action. That's what the meaning. Whatever appealing to you, you use that. You try to present yourself in such a way. Understood, as a combination of I and me. I, individual self; me, social self. This is reflection of your animal instinct, but this is about on the basis out of social interaction, your self formation, maybe outcome of socialization, maybe the culture, a blueprint of the society entered in you. Now it is exercising constraint in you. What is right? What is wrong? Guiding you. Because the value system got inculcated, because that happened because of institutionalization by various agents of socialization, and you also took part, internalization of the very value system. It is that way. So there comes that I becomes me, that occurs in social situation, maybe by socialization. The animal instinct, sometimes we become also animal, right? When we are unable to control our emotions, right, we shout, where we become animal. Even there comes ultimately that very Sigmund Freud, how the mind exists at various stages. The ego, super ego, we are going to touch in criticism also. So sometimes we fight between, sometimes we become God, tolerate maximum, sometimes we adopt zero tolerance towards something. where we become animal. Sometimes, the battleground, ego, you accommodate in some way, tolerate in some way, to some extent. It is that way we are talking about. Whatever may be, this animal instinct, of course, individual self becomes social self, self formation. This is what understood as a combination of I and me meets, that George Herbert meets self proves to be noticeably entwined, tangled, or complicated within the sociological existence. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all about that self emerges out of social situation, social interaction, social action. I becomes me. Your alteration about yourself happens out of social interaction. It is that way where you try to, you become object not only to the society, you also treat yourself as an object. It is taking the role of the others, taking the perspective of others that alters yourself, your self formation. So the self, where you treat yourself as subject, you also treat yourself as object. When you treat yourself, that subject, that becomes I. Object, me, that occurs in two stages, where we also talked about, that the very role taking. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, it is right situation. I think, that we have to, that take you to the next level. Yes, what is this? George Herbert Mead said, that existence in community comes before individual consciousness. Got the idea, na? So your presence in community, your existence in the community comes before individual consciousness. The first, the physical presence, of course, later your consciousness, that idea formation, the consciousness, ideas. Here comes Hegel, idealistic tradition. So the ideas, your notion about yourself. First, your physical presence, your participation in the society. Then, in social interaction, there arises yourself. This is right, this is wrong, this is not me, I'm different from them. It is that way. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. First, one must participate in different social positions within a society. Only subsequently can one use that experience to take the perspective of others. First participate in the life, participate in the social situation, social position. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. And that participation, what we are talking about, after that, you take the perspective of others and you become self-conscious. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. I'm sorry, it is that way. George Herbert Mead theorized that human beings, begin their understanding of the social world through play stage and game stage. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So here what, the child, how it plays, that police thief role, then it's participating in a football game, understanding the rules of the game and other players also. The beginning, that you just take the role of others, and later you participate in the game, and there arises, that where you become, that more self-conscious. How to differentiate you from the rules of the game, from other players, other actors. But in the beginning, that just you participate, taking the role of the others. Ladies and gentlemen, so that's according to play stage, game stage. That happens in childhood level also. Ladies and gentlemen, play comes first, the child's development. Yeah, play stage we are talking about. Playful kid, you say. Not playboy, playful kid. Ladies and gentlemen, the child takes different roles, taking the role of others. And he or she observes adult in society and plays them. It's all imitation in life. From the childhood, we just copy our elders, our immediate people, even our peer group, or sometimes our teachers becoming our role model. They've got, great influence in us, the language, the thought process. We spend much time in educational institutions because of that. Not all teachers are teachers. There are some teachers who transform you. They are the real teachers. But there are, of course, they are also, inspiring you for other reasons. That's different. Okay, so the child takes different roles. He or she observes, that adult members in the society and plays them out to gain an understanding of the different social roles. Got the point? It is otherwise role taking you do. And I'm also going to talk about the various examples for this. Ladies and gentlemen, excuse me. Yes. For instance, he plays the role of policeman. The kid plays the role of policeman and then the role of the thief while playing cops and robbers. The game, Thiradam Police in Tamil we say. Thiradam Police Aatam Adalama in Tamil. Can we? Can we play, that cops and robbers? It is that way. So, and plays the role of, that doctor passion. All kids will be coming, with stethoscope in prescription. Like it is that way, role of doctor passion when playing a doctor. It is that way. So, in the play stage, you take the role of others. Maybe a thief, that a police or thief or thief or even doctor or passion. When more mature, the child can participate. Now it's capable of understanding the rules of the game, participating in the game. For instance, the game of the baseball, whatever may be the game. So now it's more than that. Understanding becomes more clear. Now you are capable of differentiating yourself. That otherwise you treat yourself as an object, not only to others, and also you treat yourself. That as an object to yourself. It is that way. So it is the right time. The situation is right where you can participate in the game, understand the rules of the game, and also your role vis-a-vis in relation to that of other roles, other actors in the game. It is that way. So in the game, he or she has to relate to others and understand the rules of the game. But that's what happening in game state. Through participating in the game, he or she gains the understanding that he has to relate to the norms of the behavior or rules of the game. Social values are general guidelines to an action. When they are very specific, they are called social norms. So the norms of the behavior in order to be accepted as player. Got the idea? It is that way we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. It is the right situation. Let me take you to the next level. Mead calls this, that child's first encounter. When the child enters into game stage, you are trying to, that enter into the world, generalized others. There comes another notion, significant others. In family, all your immediate, your relatives, your parents, your siblings, they become your, your significant members. And whose approval or disapproval you are very much concerned. That means you give importance to them. So they're called significant others. But rest of the community, it's called rest of the society is called generalized others, who have got little impact on you. But at the same time, you have to do transaction with them. Like when you play, you have to go out, you play with other friends, sometimes non-friends, part of the game. When you enter into indoor stadium, whatever may be. So they are all your generalized others. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. Even when you go to the park, the kids entering into park, they would have witnessed whatever, whoever may be the kid, and he or she wanted to play. That attitude, it's not talking about familiarization, whatever may be. So the generalized other, which is that one of the main concepts in George Herbert Mead's proposes, the main concept George Herbert Mead's, and not only that, he proposes for understanding the emergence of the self in human beings, whatever may be, that you already spoke about role taking, play stage, game stage. The very crucial, that in understanding the self formation. That's the point. The generalized other can be understood as understanding the given activity and actor's place within the activity from the perspective of all others engaged in the activity. When you play as a team, you have to understand your team members also. It's not Tani Avartanam. You play all alone. No. Even if you are a lead player, you have to understand the role of other players, in what way they can supplement you, otherwise what way they can't spoil you. At least you have to ensure that way. That's the greatest, the thing. So you have to understand, taking the perspective of others, taking the strength or weakness of others and playing accordingly, so that the game becomes successful. Ladies and gentlemen, so the generalized other can be understood as understanding the given activity and the actor's place within a society from the perspective of all others engaged in the activity. So this is what I say, the action happens in constellation, nexus, not discrete. There you talk about, the game stage, there are the roles played by other actors too. You take their perspectives and you play accordingly. That demands maturity. That's why game stage happens only after play stage. Ladies and gentlemen, that's right. Where we talk about generalized others. Through understanding the generalized other, the individual understands what kind of behavior is expected. Got the idea, na? So it's that way. What kind of behavior is expected, and it's also appropriate in a particular situation, or it may differ from one social setting to another social setting. That very well what to speak, where to speak, how to speak. It's not speaking in the same spirit everywhere. People may throw you away then. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. You have to understand different yardsticks for different occasion. Well, one shoe cannot fit, that everyone. It is fit for all approach will never work, because as an individual, that actors differ. So, that the tendencies, so the nature, accordingly you have to understand, that accordingly you show a special kind of behavior to that particular, that situations, what is expected out of you and what is appropriate to that particular situation, especially different social settings. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. I'm repeatedly emphasizing the point. Of course, it is all about your self formation. I becomes me. Individual self becomes social self. It occurs in social interaction. It occurs in social action. It occurs in society, from role taking to play stage to game stage, and we spoke about generalized other also, ladies and gentlemen. So the mechanism of perspective taking within social acts is the exchange of social positions. Sometimes even while playing the shuttle doubles play, you might be aware that a badminton shuttle, of course, that. So another player should understand, you would have watched all international games and all. So if there is no proper cooperation from that another player, part of the team, it's gone then. So the opposite team, team will understand this lack of coordination and they will hit you like that. So you have to get only hittings instead of winning, ladies and gentlemen. So it is that way mechanism of you have to take the perspective of not only your own team members, also other that opposite team and their movements, and that of course that how the view, of course their ability. It is that way mechanism of the perspective taking within social acts is the exchange of the social position, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way in games. For example, children repeatedly exchange social position. You might be aware, because hey, hereafter I'll be police, you're going to be thief. Hereafter I'll be doctor, you're going to be passion. Of course, the change happens. That you might be aware. So it is a role taking. That rotation or shift. So in even hide and seek, it happens like that. Hide and seek. Children repeatedly change between hiding and seeking. In playing the cops and robbers, children alternate between the two role social position. Because when you keep on changing, that now you are ready to understand, ready to take the perspective of others, understand the rules of the game, because you are part of game stage. That the generalized other now. So Mead develops William James distinction between I and me, the very definition of the situation. The William James talks about all these things, how individual self becoming social self that way. The me is accumulated understanding of generalized other. How I see myself in the group, how I see myself in the society, how I see myself in social situation, in social action, in groups, action in groups, that way. So the me is accumulated understanding of generalized other. That is how one thinks, one's group perceives, that oneself. Got the idea? No? It is that way. How do you view? How others view? That yourself. It is that way. All those things we spoke. So the I is the individual impulses, maybe like reflexive behavior. I is the self subject. I is the self as a subject that we spoke in the beginning itself. That when you treat I as a subject, that, or you can also treat that the self as object. It is that way. So I is all about self is treated as subject, subjective feeling. You never go beyond that. Whereas me is self as object. Here you treat that yourself as object to others and object to yourself. So I is the knower. Me is noun. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way, ladies and gentlemen. So I is the knower, me is noun. How that how people view you, how that people viewing you, that further you got understanding about it. So it is almost coinciding with looking glass self concept of Charles H. Cooley. Ladies and gentlemen, it's right time that let me take you to the next concept. Of course, the mind or stream of thought, or that of course we talk about the mind or stream of thought. That is your thought, what I think, the thought process is self-reflective movements of the interaction between I and me. What I'm thinking, you do know most of the occasions. There is constant interaction between what is right for you and what is right for this, what is right for your social. It's very fortunate, that I and me coincides, and that when there is a conflict, that's a problem then. Fortunately, your maturity level goes up. You don't find contradiction between I and me. You completely lose yourself in the society. Otherwise, society is in you. The people like Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. Kalam, no difference. The service of others. You find yourself in the service of others. That's what Gandhiji said. That is self-formation. He found himself in the service of others. His soul is meant for serving others. Maybe he understood the greatest spirit. It is that way. So what's the point? So it is that way. So there is a constant interaction between I and me, where your thought process, your mind formation, your thinking. So these dynamics, that go beyond selfhood, ladies and gentlemen, beyond selfhood in a narrow sense, and form the basis, that of theory of, that human cognition we are talking about. That in that sense, you go away from parochial sense, the narrow-mindedness, to embrace, the whole world, whole humanity, whole society, whole collectivity, the communal action we are talking about. It is that way. So it is dynamism you witness. It's because of that. So when I becomes me, it's from parochialization to universalization principle. Otherwise, you embrace the societal standards. It is that way we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way, that dynamism you witness because of that. For George Herbert Mead, the thinking process is the internalized dialogue between, that I and me. Actually, it is a repetition point, of course. It's other way, different, that the context and different wordings, but spirit is same. Very well, that I spoke, that he's the very American philosopher, where you can talk about what is metaphysics. It's a branch of philosophy that examines the fundamental nature of reality. And because, he's basically pragmatist, he wants to see everything in reality, practice, not as theoretical one, including the relationship between mind and matter. Got the idea? The metaphysics is all about that, how the matter is related to the conception of the matter mind, and between substance and its attributes. How do you attribute the very substance? And between potentiality and actually, how do you view? It's that way. It's all about metaphysics. That ontological approach also we say, ladies and gentlemen. George Herbert Mead's view is also called, philosophical, metaphysical, ontological. Ontological is part of, a branch of metaphysical, you might be aware. Or maybe the philosophers whose inspiration is more metaphysical, as we spoke, and also ontological, a branch of metaphysics. Example, that Heidegger, that we are talking about, emphasizing the development of a being from the perspective of experiencing human being. When being becomes human being, as Aristotle said, that man is a social. When we are born, we are just yet another animal with flesh and blood. Of course, that they touched at our back, they touch, meh, oh, it's alive. And it is over the days you started, that speaking that way. Sometimes when you speak wrong, your parents will say, if we thought, that you will be speaking this way, we would have killed you by then. We never expected, we were waiting for your words. Come on, mummy bolo, daddy bolo. And now you're speaking this, you're countering sometimes, you're opposing, maybe, apart from teenage, adolescent character, to oppose everything. The parents, maybe the value system difference, of course, there comes consensus. That's different scenario. So what happens, we are talking about today, from being to human being, the evolution. And because of the incorporation, exposure to the society, the socialization, the culture, the SIM card enters in you. This is the way we are talking about the perspective of your experience. Otherwise, it's becoming me, from I to me. How the world is revealed, this experience, that revealed to this experiencing entity within the realm of things. It is philosophizing things, that, ladies and gentlemen. So the Heidegger we are talking about. Of course, the pragmatic philosophers like, the George Herbert Mead, whose focus on the development of the self and the objectivity of the world within the social realm. So it's all completely, once again, that getting reinforced again and again, it's formation of self. It is you identify, as Mahatma Gandhi put it, that this, that you in the service of others. You identify yourself, the service of others. You identify yourself. Self formation happens in social situation, in social interaction. It is that way. Maybe, as we do knowledge dissemination. The role of the teacher is to inspire, not to teach. Yeah, because you got everything. You are living in the world of information revolution. Everywhere, click away distance information. But to inspire you, to take you, to set you on track, there comes crucial role of the teacher. And also the teacher's role is to transform the personality of an individual. It's not mere knowledge selling business. More than a teacher, you become guru. Become guru. Ladies and gentlemen, that transformation we are talking about. So here, I becoming me, the transformation, it is that way. So the pragmatic philosophers like, of course, George Herbert Mead, whose focus on the development of the self and objectivity of the world within the social realm. Of course, you know that you treat that way. That individual mind can exist only in relation to that of other minds. Had meaning. Very statement, fantastic statement. Even based on this statement, also you can form a question. Means UPSC optional subject sociology. The individual mind can exist only in relation. I think I've seen one question also based on this. You can check with your previous questions. The individual mind can exist only in relation to that of other minds with the shared meanings, maybe gestures, symbols, oral communication. The end purpose, the individual mind can exist. The mind, self-formation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. You know that's George Herbert Mead's, the very statement we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, the Mead's, that writings or, of course, this is right and we have to talk about so far, sir. Yeah, that very spirit we understood, sir. It looks complicated. Maybe if at all, I don't think it is complicated. It is very simple. I told you, that you are a genius. I'm talking in front of a genius. And, and also I shared the same spirit in different manifestations, in different, interpretations. I took much pain in sharing that spirit with you. I think, it would have happened, I believe so. But in spite of that, there are criticisms against, that George Herbert Mead's, the very contribution itself, the self-identity Mead's writing so complicated. Because when you don't understand, you say it is complicated. You have to simplify. And it is difficult to understand. Have you taken effort to understand? Whatever maybe, this is accusation, the criticism. People in the social circle, it's up to you. Because, no, in democracy, is nobody is free from criticism. There is a German. So the criticism, of course, that goes with your freedom also, freedom to criticize. And of course, even you got fundamental rights. Ladies and gentlemen, so it is, that there are people with that particular notion also, that. And if you understand, the idea is very simple, I told you. It's all about self-formation. Identity. Mahatma Gandhi quote, you never forget, that's otherwise H Mead. You identify yourself in the service of others. I identified myself. En kaddan panni seidhu kittappade, karma yogi. In Tamil, my duty is to serve others, right? It's that way. That's so. You can also see God by serving, that especially the people who really needed the service. That's very important. So, it is that way we are talking about. Mead himself has used the keywords, that the keyword in 4 different ways, that especially the self, that how, that is for self-control. So it is the self-exercising control, the object formed of oneself in a particular context, me, the self-concept, and that. So one, self-control. Another one, it talks about me. Third one, the self-concept. And one's unique personality. It talks as, that self-formation, the 4. So, that people are getting confused actually. Hello, George Herbert Mead, are you very clear first? Have you understood the concept, what you're coming to say? You yourself talking in 4 different aspects. When you say, self, you talk in terms of social control, self-control, and you talk in terms of me, and you talk in terms of self-formation, self-concept, and also, that as if this is what me, one's personality. Where you are exactly, maybe different manifestations of the same spirit, but people question that 4 different ways. So Herbert Blumer was unwilling to substitute other terms. Got the idea, na? So in spite of that, that unwilling to substitute, that not going for alternatives. Otherwise, this is according to sociologists, that this Herbert Blumer, he's part of, symbolic interactionism perspective, along with, that George Herbert Mead, H. Kohli, and also Irving Goffman. You might be aware, we spoke already. So this particular criticism, according to and Tamoshu Shibutani, ladies and gentlemen, and Richard Douglas Goodman has got a couple of criticisms also. And if at all you find, go to library, you have the visit. And I try to incorporate, criticism from different sources, that hope it will be sufficient to you. And also the conversation between I and me is misleading. The criticism is creating the impression that the mind consists of, the 2 agents negotiating each other. Herbert Blumer was, reluctant to make corrections, ladies and gentlemen. So, that, so, and he was quite reluctant to, that make the corrections over this particular thing. It looks as if, overall that I, me. How do you know? How do you know there is I? What is I? What is me? How do you know? Come to know this questioning ultimately. Maybe it's your opinion. So the people think that way. That the two agents negotiating each other. That your perception that way. Maybe Herbert Blumer was reluctant to make the corrections. Went ahead with that. Of course, this is according to that once again Tamoshu Shibuthani, the very sociologist, that whose criticism over the very self and identity concepts of that the very George Herbert Mead. The self, the internalized object representing one's own personality. I told you the self formation because of socialization. The self emerges only in social situations. Of course, the agents of that society, agents of socialization, from charity begins at home, from family, marriage, that and your relatives, your peer group, your educational institutions, your social media, even the print media, the TV world, the entire community you are living in, gated community, they taught you actually, that in different aspects. Ladies and gentlemen, that is institutionalization. How do you take in? How do you absorb? How do you internalize? So that results, that inculcation of the value system we are talking about, the self, the internalized object representing one's own personality. Ladies and gentlemen, the mind is, that social and society is mental. So that's why I think it is right time for us to recall what I said at the beginning. Emile Durkheim said, religion is nothing but society transfigured by faith. The name of worshipping God, you worship temple, worship idol. You worship idol, that erected by, established by the Agama Shastra. You worship the idol, you in the name of that worshipping God, you worship the system responsible for that particular religious setup. In the name of worshipping God, you worship the people, you worship the society. Religion is nothing but society divinized. That's what that as collective representation. That's what Emile Durkheim said. The same way, the mind is social because the self formation you talk about, it's because of social situation in society. So you say the self is the outcome of the society. You may be individual, but you are byproduct of this society. So the mind of an individual is social because gregarious. It's not mere gregarious. That self formation happened because of the society, and society is also mental. The very society, what you are talking about, what the value system, it's not came, society is sui generis on its own. That's according to Emile Durkheim we are talking about. But the very society, the value system, everything came outcome of the very social interaction, outcome of, that the interacting minds, the different minds, collective minds. It's that way. So when mind is social, society is mental. Do you understand the parallelism with, Emile Durkheim that way? So what you see in the society is yourself. That's why we say, like looking glass self theory of Charles H. Cooley, that society is your mirror. The way with which you see yourself. The perspective with which, if you see the society is fantastic, it's fantastic. But of course, there comes, optimism, pessimism, even philosophize, that you become philosopher by seeing both. It's up to you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. The mind is social, society is mental. Your exposure, your social experience, your socialization, your SIM card, the culture, and the internalization, institutionalization, everything, like the constant interaction between I and me, your thinking process. Maybe the outcome of your role taking, play stage, game stage, generalized or there. Everything we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So the internalized object representing one's own personality. Of course, the self, the ego of I can arise only in relationship with other people. Got the idea, na? You're talking about. So, that the self emerges only in relationship with other people. That's what, Charles H. Cooley, here we are talking about, looking glass self theory, the concept we are talking about. I'm not what I am. I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I'm what I think. On the basis of what you think, I take your perspective. I take the feedback of you. Then I alter my self formation. I change myself. Then I come to know, oh, this is what me. Oh, I was thinking about me this way. No. Okay, when others, maybe your friends, there is a saying, I'm not saying, Tirukural, Idipara illa, Yemara mannan, Kedupar ilanum kedum. Even a king may be. That should be, that the council of ministers, to advise, to criticize. then only he or she will understand. It is that way. So the constructive criticism will be appropriate, that so that the king himself may not understand everything. Maybe the gap with the rest of the society. Otherwise, people are afraid of the sharing that information. There will be a gap, naturally, social distance. So there you should have that a team to instruct you, guide you, so that what are all the things you do right. Otherwise, you reflect the intentions of the people. That letter and spirit. There should not be a gap. The percolating, it should percolate down from the minds of the kings to the people, very people. There should not be a gap. So there you need a system, maybe a role of media, but media itself is not free from accusation. They are politicized, very well. All those stuff, ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So the feedback you receive from the rest of the society, that alters your opinion about yourself, or self-formation, ladies and gentlemen. So additional information we are talking about, so it's not only that. So far we covered that, self and identity, and even the criticism. Hope I would have enriched your understanding, that I took different manifestations, interpretations, to share the spirit. In spite of that, some more information, that basic information I would like to share, that we talk about, that symbolic interactionism focuses on micro level. It's not like the macro level, like structural functionalism way. Okay, and the way in which, that the meanings are constructed and transmitted across the members of the society. So it is here to say the individual is more than society notion. Otherwise, individuals are byproduct of the society, ladies and gentlemen. That way, symbolic interactionism focuses on micro level, the individual self formation. It's on behalf of individual, how the self is formed in social situation. It is that way. So social life can only proceed if the meanings and symbols, the role of gesture, symbols, are largely shared by the members of the society. If you don't use symbols, it may not be effective communication. Even the emoji, that everything you use, that what I'm doing now, my gesture, my symbol, my PPT, the language, communication. Otherwise, the communication may not be effective. That's why in animals, the communication is limited. They don't have, it's not as specialized as human beings. But sometimes, that there is also criticism. Have you ever heard, that two, animals directly hitting each other? Rarest of rare occasion you watch in National Geographic channel. When tsunami came, all animals sensed they could protect themselves. But we, the higher order species, we perished. Some of our people perished. Why? The insensitivity to environment. Hope you are aware. The highest order of species. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about, though we say animals, that they've got, that limited symbols, limited communication. It's not as specialized as human beings. There is ultimately the nature is invincible. You say, that you know very well. Nobody can defeat the very nature. Even the COVID crisis situation we are talking about, even whatever may be the calamity, natural disaster. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we talk about, you never hear two animals directly hitting each other, but we hear two trains directly hitting each other, two buses, and two flights sometimes, that the cargo flights happen, that some 15 years back in Chennai also, you might be aware. So the communication failure, you might be aware. So it is that way, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about, it is not talking about miscommunication, the use of symbols effectively to communicate so as to understand, fulfill the purpose. So then only social life will be, that very comfortable and helps formation of the individual selves. If this were not the case, that a meaningful communication would be impossible. It's less effective communication, otherwise miscommunication, put it that way in extreme sense. So in order for interaction to proceed, each person involved, each person that involved must interpret the meanings and intentions of others. So otherwise it is ineffective communication. You think in one direction, another person thinking in another direction. Otherwise, you just imagine a situation, in NCC, that in schools you would have done. They will ask, the 25 students, to arrange, stand in line. One particular information will be commuted in one end of one student. The moment that information reaches the 25th student, the other end will be no way related. Huh? Hope you understand the gossips and its effective play in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, so that there should be effective communication, not gossips. And also, that even while communicating, the interpretation differs from person to person, with prejudice. That it is that way. So it is that way, that we speak. we interact with the world, we take the perspective of others. At the same time, it should be letter and spirit without deviation. There comes role. We talk about it. Why the effective role of symbols we are talking about. In order for interaction to proceed, each person involved must interpret the meanings and intentions of others. Then only effective communication. This is made possible by the existence of the common symbols. Of course, once again, the role of gestures, symbols, but actually accomplished by means of the process by which that the terms we already spoke, role taking. So more than gesture, more than symbol, role taking. And in child we spoke about play stage, game stage, generalized other. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm repeating many times, it's a very smaller topic, spirit same, but you should understand effectively that's the very purpose. The process of role taking involves what is the role taking, sir? Of course we spoke. What is role taking, if you ask me? Involves the individual taking on the role of that another by imaginatively placing. You put yourself in somebody else's position. If I were in your position, this is what you speak now. Put yourself in somebody else's position so that you understand empathy, sympathy involved. It's that way. So by imaginatively placing himself in a position of the person with whom he is interacting, on the basis of that this interpretation, that you become sensitive then. Otherwise, that the communication becomes more effective because what the intention you capture immediately. So that's effective communication. Even sometimes you do face reading. It is that way, but this is use of the gesture, grimace, symbols we are talking about. On the basis of this interpretation, he will make his response to the action of others. That smoothens a very interaction process. George Herbert's Mead's view of human interaction sees man as both actively creating that the social environment and being shaped by. You created the society. But of course, Emile Durkheim says society on its own creation. So, it's nobody came and created society. Society is sui generis. Otherwise, people responsible for the formation of society. Even social formation, Karl Marx speaks that way. Instead of saying society, Karl Marx says social formation. Ladies and gentlemen, you will come to know. So the people, that effectively, taking part in shaping the social environment, society, and in turn, it is shaped by them. Shaped, that the very forces you create. That's Karl Marx once again. The forces for which you are responsible, the very forces ultimately shaping you later. But Karl Marx talks in exploitative sense. That's totally different in alienation. But here we are talking in totally different sense. You create the society. You are responsible for the formation of society. Forget about that here. Go for a smaller entity for social groups. Maybe in your gated community, one association. Maybe one trade union formation. You shape. You form that social group. You ultimately talk about rules and regulations. Ultimately you strictly adhere to, as we that gave ourselves to the constitution, and we are governed by the constitution. We abide by, we make rules, and we strictly that adhere to. We should not violate. The same is the way. So it is that way human interaction sees man as both actively creating the social environment and being shaped. In turn, you are shaped by it, and you create the God. God is one. Of course, that for understanding purpose, our people, our elders created, that forefathers created some images and all. So you stay with the spirit. But people have become, instead of becoming spiritual, they become religious. They started fighting for, that all those stuff. My God is big, your God is big. All religious competition happened. But at the end of the day, all religions, all roads leading to Rome. But don't say, that I'm eulogizing Christianity. All paths leading to, that ultimate apart God. Or maybe manifestations are different, very well. So that's why we say the paths are different, destination is same. The same way, that we different religions created by the people, ultimately they are getting shaped by the very religion. They are very religious people, not becoming spiritual, fighting for religion, fighting for the supremacy of the religion. That's why communalism happens everywhere. So this is all people misunderstood religion, clash of civilization, the conflict between two religions, and it happens even between among Abrahamic religions also, that you might be aware, the sectarian violence, Shia, Sunni, whatever may be the religion. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So it is that way we shape something, ultimately we are shaped by it. It is that way we are here bringing the societal context. The individuals, that initiates and directs his own action, while at the same time being influenced by the attitudes and expectations of others in the form of generalized others. See, that it is as an individual, you initiate and you direct your own action. At the same time, you're also parallelly influenced by the attitude and expectation. What others will think if we do this way? Will it bother them? Will it affect them? Will they like it? All these questions come into your mind. It's that way, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about. It is that way. So it's not only, that you unilaterally do everything. You also take into account the perspectives of others. There comes, constraints. Maybe you take into account the value system. There comes, culture otherwise. That. So the I becomes me there. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. Attitudes and expectations of others in the form of generalized others. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about. It's that way. So not only that, individual and society are regarded as inseparable. They go together. The individuals are byproduct of society. Society, after all, came the social formation because of the people, because of the individuals. But society is more than individual. That's totally different scenario. Whole is more than its parts. Of course, all units responsible for the formation of whole, but whole is always more than its parts. Sum is more than its parts. It is that way. But they are inseparable. For the individual, that can only become human in social context. Can only become, that the self-formation in the social context. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. In this context, he or she develops a sense of self, which is a prerequisite, that for thought. Ladies and gentlemen, the self-formation, that the I becoming me, that leads to the I becoming me. We are talking about even the thought itself is a constant interaction between I and me. So people talk about, in this context, develop the sense of self we are talking about, and which is a prerequisite of any thought. Ladies and gentlemen, so that is why we say, maybe the interpretation in such a way, George Herbert Mead, ladies and gentlemen. So the thought, your thinking process is a constant interaction between my original I and what others will think about me. That exercises, that constrains all of my action, that rationalizes all of my action. The people never become authoritative, despotic, tyrannical. They're getting tamed because of the culture, because of the rules and regulations, and because they know the consequence. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. It is that way. He learns, that to take the roles of others, which is essential, which is essential both for the development of the cells and for the cooperative action. That it's not only the cell formation, and also, that it happens, that you take the role of others. It's talking about, once again, reinforcing the point, role taking, and which is essential not only for the development of the cells, development of the self formation, your identity, and also for, that societal action. That action happens at the societal level, social situation, the cooperative action. Ladies and gentlemen, without communication in terms of the gestures, in terms of the symbols, whose meanings are, that shared. We are talking about whose meanings are, that those symbols should be shared among, the people. This process would not be possible. So the means, the effective roles played by the means, the gestures, the communication, then only self-formation happens. That is why that self-formation never happens in animal society, because they lack all those gestures and, the symbols. If at all you say they are limited, it's not as specialized as human beings. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So man therefore lives in a world of symbols. For the idea, we are all living in the world of, as I told you, right? The moment you see, that H2O, water, is that way. 98 degrees Fahrenheit, okay, fever. It's that. Stethoscope, doctor, yes. That way. A blackboard, the school, all the symbolic communication. We are talking emojis, that you effectively utilize emojis in such a way. It is that way we are talking about. Man therefore lives in the world of symbols, gestures, which give meaning, significance to life, and provide the basis for human interaction. The roles are very crucial. Symbols, gestures, without which the human interaction may not be possible, without which the self-formation on the part of individuals, especially in social situation, may never happen. Ladies and gentlemen, that way we are talking about. I think it is, that let me take you some more. You can also have seen the first page, self and society are twin born, the previous year question. It's not only the statement of, the George Herbert Mead, and Charles Hurton Cooley also said the same thing, and both belonging to symbolic interactionism perspective. Interactionism, the social interaction using the symbolic interactionism. This is going to be the future of the sociology. though it is the microscopic perspective, not like the major perspectives of structural functionalism context school of thought. This is going to be the future, of course, according to this Charles H. Cooley. Even the very George Herbert Mead said, self and society, yourself and society, your twin bond. Because just now we spoke, self in society, society is in self. Self is social, society is mental. We have just now seen the statement. And one of the earliest scholars to tackle this problem was Charles Hurton Cooley, who spoke about looking glass self theory, especially in his book called Social Organization. He writes, otherwise he wrote, that the self and society are twin bond. Okay, it is bond together. They are inseparable, like, and that we know one is immediately as we know the other. Got the point now? Once you come to know about self, parallel you will talk about society. You talk about society, you can never miss this self. And further, that the notion of a separate and independent the ego is an illusion. You're talking about the notion of separate and independent ego is illusion. That we don't talk about that I, rather we give emphasis to me, rather we are talking about. So nothing to do. Ego should go. Even in our day-to-day conversation, ego should go. That spoils the relationship, ladies and gentlemen. So it is that way we talk about. So in other words, that self-consciousness, that who you are, my self-formation, who I am, self-consciousness can arise only in society, and it is inseparable from social consequence. So that's what I'm saying. That what do you think when it is 100% coinciding with what society thinks? You are in harmony, perfect harmony. I think it is right time to recall Dr. Kalam's statement, when there is righteousness in the heart, there will be beauty in the character. When there is beauty in the character, very well, there will be harmony in the home. Of course, when there is harmony in the home, there will be order in the nation, then there will be peace in the world. It is that way we are talking about. So that begins with individuals' righteousness. Individuals, the self-formation consciousness based on dharma, that ensures global peace, that ensures order in the nation, stability in the nation. It is that way. If you ensure that it's not conflicting the societal interests, you're very fortunate. That's why that we ask every individual to write vision statement, mission statement, and even family should write vision statement. All members should, there should be coincidence. Otherwise, they are traveling like Navagraha, they are traveling in different directions. It won't serve the purpose. Even organization should have its own vision statement, mission statement, strategy, task, everything. Ladies and gentlemen, so you see the congruence, so that it stays with, the self-consciousness, that particular self-consciousness, the self-formation can arise only in society, and it is inseparable from social consciousness. Ladies and gentlemen, that is why the family is the basic unit of society. What happens in family is getting reflected in the society also. The exploitation of the women in the family, same is the way the women are exploited at the societal level. We don't treat women on par. That's why that women are treated on par at the societal level also. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. I'm just for example, I said that way. So self shapes, that creates society. Self shapes, creates society, and society shapes self. Self is social and society is mental. We spoke already. It is that way. So the two are constantly in interaction with each other. One is not logically prior to another. It is not saying that what comes first. Not like that. கோழியிலிருந்து முட்டை வந்ததா, முட்டையிலிருந்து கோழி வந்ததா. In Tamil there is a saying, egg came first, that from hen came first from egg. Whatever may be the illogical thing, the dialogue we are talking about. So that, so they are reflexive in character. It is that way, that one depending on another, they are inseparable. Therefore society and self are twin bond. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the right situation we're talking about. Not only that, you can also ask me, parallelly, what are all the materials to be consulted for this, that GH Mead. Ladies and gentlemen, let me repeat once again. The whole spirit is centered around self and identity. As Mahatma Gandhi put it, in the service of others, you identify yourself. So George Herbert Mead, under symbolic interactionism perspective, the micro perspective in sociology, says your self-formation happens. Your I, your animal spirit becomes social self under social situation. Maybe byproduct of socialization. Maybe the culture as a SIM card entered in you. It occurs in social situation. It occurs in social action. That that for that you effectively utilize the gestures, symbols. without which it's not possible. For that purpose, you go for the taking the role of the others, taking the perspectives of others, role taking. As a child, that you would have gone for play stage. So that taking the role of others, and later when you become mature, that you understand your relationship with other members, and also you try to understand the rules of the game. That's game stage, and you know how to deal with other generalized others, rest of the society. So it is that way. So the whole spirit centered around this particular notion. In spite of that, it's not free from the criticisms variable, like the very Charles H. Cooley parallelism of looking glass cell theory, and we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. I think that I think if at all you got any doubts, parallel, you can also type. I can answer your questions happily. I think we shared the very spirit with you. So this is the right thing, and some more information also based on previous year questions, ladies and gentlemen, we discuss. I think it is right time for me to share, that especially from the few spirits part of this, that Richard Douglas Goodman. It's not mandatory, but I took the some of the points which attracted me. I thought of sharing with you before going for resources. This is one of the important resources for reference purpose. I've taken information. In spite of that, let me take you that here, and of course very well. The roots of symbolic interactionism in philosophical pragmatism, especially the work of John, that Dewey, we spoke many a times, and also the psychological behaviorism, the work of John B, that Watson, ladies and gentlemen, we spoke, out of which, that if at all you talk about symbolic interactionism, the roots in philosophical pragmatism of John Dewey and psychological behaviorism of, that John B. Watson. I think, I have to add this point, is the right time. Not only that, ladies and gentlemen, so it is a confluence of pragmatism and behaviorism, and not only that, George Simmel, that you would have, that I already know about that gentleman, the sociologist, who said instead of socialization, he said, association. That way, Simmelian, synthetic school, formalistic schools of sociology, you come to know about George Simmel. And also symbolic interactionism developed, that especially in the University of Chicago in 1920s, the recent thing you're talking about. But Indian sociology is all about, that 1930, you might be aware. So the very recent, that microscopic, the perspective of sociology we are talking about. Not only that, so why it is, that it's not macro oriented, it's micro oriented. I keep on emphasizing because it's standing in contrast to the psychological reductionism of behaviorism, and also the structural determinism of that other macro oriented theories, the structural functionalism. That's the very reason we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way. So George Herbert Mead, a few points. I'm also directly some points I thought of sharing, especially I'm sharing summary to you, so that you should not miss all the points relevant to this. I take you to the core, and so I want you to be, your answer should be fantastic. So it is, you take this flavor from me, that especially George, the Richard Douglas Goodman we are talking about. Of course, Mead's theory accorded primacy and priority to the social world. So that's what we emphasize. Society is more than individual. Not only that, and it is out of the social world, the consciousness, the mind, self, and so on emerge. So everything arises from social situation, and the most basic unit of this, George Herbert Mead's symbolic interactionism, the social theory, is ACT. As I told you already, the basic unit of the symbolic interactionism theory is ACT. But ACT is not individual act, social act. Act happens in social situation. It is that way, which include that four dialectically related that stages, because the Hegelistic dialecticism, that the very tradition, that this particular symbolic interactionism, the George Herbert Mead following, you might be aware. So the dialectic stages, of course, he said you can take down notes, all these things, parallelly. The four dialectically related stages, of course, the impulse, perception, manipulation, and consummation. Consummation means end. So the impulse, of course, I, instinct. Of course, the perception, how do you view? Of course, the manipulate, the game stage, right, with generalized others. Then consummation, end, the self-formation. You come to know who you are. That's fantastic, that. So I want, so this is dialectically, that one contradicting another. The four stages according to the very, that Richard Douglas Goodman on behalf of George Herbert Mead. I think that's fantastic. Yeah, as humans, that very well, the distinctive capacity to carry on an inner conversation within ourselves, and that is a unique feature when compared with animal society. I told you that's fantastic information. I think I shared with you from here only. Parallel, let me, the general mechanism of the self is the ability of the people to put in the place of the place of others, the role taking. That's what you do. You take the perspective of others. I think we spoke enough. In spite of that, Med has been criticized. Med has relatively little to say about society. You can ask me how. The Med largely lacks macro sense of society. George Herbert Mead, your symbolic interactionism, of course, people say it's going to be the future of sociology, future perspective, cool. But it's not like, macro perspectives in sociology, like structural functionalism or conflict school of thought. Why? Because the institutions are defined little more than the collective habits. You're talking about, that the very I, me, self-formation, right, identity, good, fantastic, that happens in social change, social situation, and use of symbols, gestures, fantastic, and role taking, play stage, game stage, generalized others, superb. But the point is, but social institutions are more than that. They're called subsystem of the whole system called society, where you have to talk about structure, function, structure in its functioning, a system is born. That's more than the self-formation of an individual. They're all dealing with macro aspects. George Herbert Mead, how you are going to deal with this? The criticism against, George Herbert Mead, ladies and gentlemen. And I think, that otherwise, if you ask me, let me also, that parallelly give some more, that gist, especially symbolic interactionism may be summarized based on the following principles. You know the spirit now. I think you are capable of observing the different, interpretations. Let me speak that. The human beings, unlike lower animals, unlike lower animals, are endowed with the capacity for thought. That's why, people ask you, have you applied your mind? Use your brain, man. Have you applied your mind? Think, think, think. Even we are dealing thinkers now. People who thought, we are dealing now. We have to think now. So endowed with, who made us think now, are endowed with capacity for thought. We are endowed with capacity for thought. Then the capacity for thought is shaped by why? It's because of social interaction. Third thing, social interaction, people learn meaning, symbols that allow them to exercise that distinctively human capacity of thought. Ladies and gentlemen, spirit remains same. Even Douglas, Goodman, Ritz are sharing the same spirit. Same thing, you understand, you understood thoroughly today. I think, because this topic is very small topic. I've got the question of explaining you, taking you to the variety of resources, sharing the similar spirit from different, standpoints. Especially, let me speak this way. Not only that, social interaction, people learn meanings and symbols that allows them to exercise the distinctively human capacity for thought. That's cool. Meanings and symbols allow people to carry on distinctively human action and interaction. That's cool. People are able to modify or alter meanings and symbols they use in action and interaction on the manipulative state. And on the basis of interpretation of the situation, how do we interpret that goes with our intention. The people are able to make these modifications or alterations because in part their ability to interact with themselves, which allows them to examine possible courses in action, assess relative advantage, disadvantage, and choose what is right for that particular occasion. It is that way. What may be intertwined patterns of action and interaction make up groups and society. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about. As I told you, Charles H. Cooley, Herbert Blumer, Erving Goffman, belonging to the symbolic interactionism school. Not only that, even George Herbert Mead also was elaborated later by Stryker and Denzin, and that more elaboration of this George Herbert Mead. But the point is, that's why we say that even there is separate article in that book also speaking about symbolic interactionism is going to be the future of the sociology, though it is microscopic in its that handling, in spite of the criticism that it's unable to find solution to the macro structures like social institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, and of course you can go through, you can browse, you can go through other resources and ignore materials for your base as usual very well. And George Richard Douglas Goodman, I referred, and that culminated, I referred other that net resources available. You can also that various contributions of that the various thinkers part of the symbolic interactionism already available, the internet resources. You can get the touch apart from that and go through previous year questions to understand more, to benefit more. I think it is. Do you have any questions meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen? This is the right time for me. Yes, I think the viewers may post later. Otherwise, I participate. Ladies and gentlemen, that. So welcome to Unacademy once again, and that I appreciate your passions. Hope I would have added value and enriching your understanding about that the subject matter of sociology, especially the thinkers portion, very important unit on the part of paper 1. And the couple of thinkers we are also going to discuss in part of paper 2, Indian sociologists, you will come to know. And especially the thinkers portion has got very crucial role to play, with more marks. If you're very comfortably here and rest of the units are nothing, very well. And otherwise, in all units, all this, that the thinkers perspectives, keep on visiting then and there. So you can't outrightly reject that role, the very important role. So, and that I appreciate your, participation and that the very passions too. So hitherto, Success Sampath interacted with you, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way. Please use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount. Please, that choose iconic program to benefit more, and you will have your own personalized coach, the mentor, to guide you to understand your nature, as we spoke many times. And this is right time. That Success Sampath, me signing off. You can also parallelly visit that Unacademy platform by downloading that learning app. And a lot of videos already available regarding general studies, and also YouTube itself. You've got other videos relevant to this, sociology. Please go through that and watch, that so that you can participate in the other video programs also in future, ladies and gentlemen. And welcome to Unacademy once again. That this is Success Sampath. Thank you so much. Let's meet tomorrow with that another topic. Thank you. Bye bye.